Imagine two investors, each starting with $100. The journey for one investor is smooth, and for the other, it's chaos. 5 years later, one investor made money while the other lost money. But the average return for each was 10% per year. How is that possible? For the first investor with the smooth path, you can see the 10% gain acting upon each previous year's wealth, the way your high school maths teacher told you compound interest works. It's clear to see how the average comes out at 10% per year. The second investor gets the same average but through a much more unpredictable path. First, a huge gain, followed by a huge loss. Another gain, another loss. And suddenly, the framework of average returns, or more precisely arithmetic average returns, we used for our first investor no longer seems to make any sense at all. And this is where average returns start to become dangerous, because wealth doesn't experience an average, it experiences a sequence. If you start with $100 and make 50%, you have $150. But if you then lose 50%, you don't go back to $100, you end with 75. Your average return says 0, but your money says minus 25%. A loss cuts the base that future gains have to grow from. Now watch what happens if we keep the final outcome fixed but change the path. Same starting wealth, same ending wealth. But as we alter the path, the average return starts to move. The average can fall and look disappointing, or it can rise and look extraordinary. But increasing the average return isn't making this investor any wealthier. All that changed was the violence of the journey. This is why average returns can be wildly misleading. Gains and losses are simply added together, but in reality what happened in the past is multiplied by what happens thereafter. So the real return, the return your money actually lived through, must take into account the multiplicative nature of investing. For this, we need to transform the percentage returns for each year into a decimal, multiply them and then take the fifth root for 5 years of returns. This gives us the geometric growth factor, that is, the number which when multiplied by the investment's value each year gives the end wealth. That number is 0.94 in this situation. In other words, the wealth of our confused investor each year is at 94% of what it was the previous year. Or, in other words, they lost 6% per year. This is the geometric average return, or as finance bros call it, the compound annual growth rate. And this is the number that connects the start point to the end point. Not the average of the yearly returns, but the compounded path. The difference between these two numbers is known as volatility drag. The greater the drag, the further the arithmetic returns are from the truth. The volatile journey taken by this investor effectively created a mathematical illusion. You see it in real markets too. Let's take 5 years of real returns from the S&P 500 between 1973 and 1977. On paper, the arithmetic return was about minus 2.3% per year. But once compounding and volatility are taken into account, the geometric return falls to roughly minus 3.6%, a drag of 1.4 percentage points. Now look at Japan between 2005 and 2009. The arithmetic return was almost flat, only slightly negative. But the geometric return was closer to the minus 3%. Again, volatility widened the gap between perception and reality. And then there's the Nasdaq during the dot-com boom and crash. Between 1998 and 2002, the arithmetic average return was still positive, more than 8% per year. At first glance, that sounds fantastic, but the actual compounded return investors experienced was negative, around minus 2% per year, a volatility drag of more than 10 percentage points. The average return suggested wealth creation. The compounded path delivered wealth destruction, because markets don't pay you the average return, they pay you the path. So next time your fund manager tells you made an average of 10% per year for the last 5 years, perhaps ask them which average they're referring to. If you found this video useful, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos in this series.